Welcome to my Gorian cave. Girl, I am Master Chuck. This is where you will learn everything that you need to know to serve me as a true submissive Gorian slave girl. I will now read to you Master Chuck's rules for girls and pets. This is taken from a note card that is handed out on my True Gorian Sim in Second Life.
Okay, but...
Rule number 1. All girls must greet their master as he arrives. This means every time he arrives, if your master does not answer you right away, he is either swamped with IMs or dealing with an issue, so be patient, he will get to you. Rule number 2. All girls are to beg to be excused from the computer for the night, or to get something, etc. unless an emergency occurs, which will be explained upon your return.
Emergency?
Rule number 3. My girls are not permitted to travel without my permission.
You just used the word permission twice in the same sentence. Did you make up these rules yourself?
Rule number 4. My girls are to be respectful to any and all guests, visitors, and members of the city. Enemies are not guests. Do not be disrespectful to them, but you don't have to be all sweet to enemies.
Did that headgear come from World of Warcraft?
Rule number 5. My girls will strive to be pleasing at all times. A little fun is alright, but mind your tongue and your behavior. If you think it might be going too far, it is.
Mind your tongue?
Rule number 6. My girls must show complete respect for their master or mistress. This means at the end of every sentence you must include my master or my mistress, or yes, my master or my mistress, and so on. If you choose to disrespect your master or mistress, you will be dealt with.
Are you sometimes a mistress?
Rule number 7. My girls must maintain a presentable appearance when off my True Gorian island. When on the island they can wear silks, can be partially or fully nude if no guests are on the island. Rule number 8. My girls must state their devotion to their master at least once a day and whenever asked. There are to be no short answers.
What time is the DJ supposed to get here?
Rule number 9. My girls must beg to help their master regularly.
Is regularity a problem for you?
Rule number 10. My girls must answer their master promptly when asked a question. If there is more than a 3-minute pause to your answer, I will assume you have left the computer without permission and you will be dealt with upon your return. Again, emergencies are allowed and will be explained upon return. Girl? Do you understand these rules so far, girl? Girl, answer me. Rule number 11. My girls must realize their master is busy and cannot always attend to them promptly. Sometimes his mass hysteria of IMs have issues that need to be dealt with and make him slightly frustrated. Please, when your master needs a moment, do not badger him. He will be fine. He just needs to breathe.
Badger, 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 badger.
Rule number 12. You will remember real life comes first, always. But when you are here, you are my Kajera. This was the path you chose, so live it fully, embrace it and learn.
Look. Is anyone else showing up for this event?
Rule number 13. Talk to me when you have a problem and we will work through it together. If you want to go to Earth, talk to me first. The color remains on.
Yes, I do have a problem. I was headed to a St. Patrick's Day party and my teleport failed and I got dropped here at your cave.
Rule number 14. There will be no playing around or messing around sexually with sisters or pets with pets when master is not online. Especially when your master is busy with an issue or needs to build or straighten out things. This is to only be done when he is online. Break this rule and it is like going behind his back and will be dealt with accordingly.
Oh. Finally my friend is TPing me. Gotta go. Bye, Master. Chuck.
Rule number 14. When on the Nadu or bracelets is not required unless we have guests present when out shopping will always go into one of the set positions. Do you have any questions, girl? 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 Lost another one.
Okay, welcome to part 4 of my series on being a master, particularly Gorian master. BDSM also work, but my emphasis is always in Gore because my quotes are coming from Gore. This is a fourth in a series. There are 3 others if you want to go looking for them. The intro, they always look the same on the front covers whenever I do a series. The reason I started this was simply that there's a lot of cards on a lot of things. Dealing with how to be a scribe or how to be a slave. Not a lot on being a master, although Master Fogbane did do a seminar in Kuroba, recently. Well, a few years back, not recently, on this particular area. So it is taught. It's just not taught a lot. And I'll be perfectly honest. I have a slave that not these 2, but another one. I have 4 slaves. They told me recently that, and she's been around, she started out in Yahoo Gore. So let's say she's been around about 25 years because she migrated from Yahoo Gore to Second Life, but been around a long time, real life and Second Life. And I said, how many masters? And I meant something else. She said, oh, hundreds. And I said, well, how many were true masters? She said, very few. And that was blunt, but that's what she said. Very, very few are real masters. And that part's very, very important. It's easy to get the tag master. In fact, in Gore, you're automatically called master. And you feel good about it. Hey, I'm a master, and I got slaves. I knew one brother that went to Ankara a few months ago and bought 2 slaves, one of them who I was interested in, and was so proud of that fact. And within a month, both were gone. They both left him because he showed up somewhere else. I was on a city where he happened to be, and both girls weren't with him anymore. So it's easy to buy a slave at somewhere like Ankara. Much harder to keep them. It's a whole nother ballgame. Okay, here we go. And that's why this series, it's not that I'm an expert on it. I am drawing from a lot of different sources. However, I do have 4 slaves that have been with me. We're going on an anniversary in June. I think I know how to celebrate that. I've been thinking about that a lot. But the point is, they've been with me over a year, all 4 of them. And I haven't lost a one. If they're thinking about leaving me, they haven't told me yet. No, I'm not going to say that. Okay, Magicians of Gore, page 465. It is one thing to own a woman, I said. It's another to have her within the bonds of excellent mastery. Like I said, it's easy to buy a slave at a slave thing. This guy was so proud that he had gotten 2 new slaves in Ankara. The problem is within a couple of weeks, they weren't there anymore. So my point is that you want to have the bonds of excellent mastery. Okay, next quote, and I've got a lot of quotes all through here, just so you know I'm not blowing smoke. You say, well, how was he an expert? The guy actually that wrote these books, Norman, was a psychologist. I believe is a sociologist, but he did study other cultures a lot. He did teach at a university. He understood people really well. He ended up writing a book back in the 70s on actually dealing with sex and relationships that people read. He's written 36 books, and people relate to him well enough that there's been 2 movies. Yes, I know they're not the best movies. And a whole lot of people around the world that follow these principles. So, no, he's not perfect, but he hit a chord with a whole lot of people. Okay, quote, it's hard to be a man, I said, until one stands in relationship to a woman. You got to have it's like black and white. You don't see light or black until you have one in relationship to the other. And I suppose it's hard to be a woman until one stands in relationship to a man. What relationship, she asked, Master? Well, that's a natural order of nature. You're going to hear a lot of people talk about natural order when we talk about Gore. That was a Norman concept that you hear a lot. Yes, Master, she said. I looked at her. I cannot know well the nature of your feelings, I said, but I know and well that women are as deep and as well as beautiful. We are so different than you, she said. I fear we'll never understand it. Now we know where that word men are from Mars and women are from Venus came from. It is doubly easier to put on your knee and push the whip to your teeth than it is to understand you, I said. And quote, the man who truly understands us, she laughed, is the one to put us on our knees and make us kiss the whip. Explorers of Gore, page 188. Um, a lot of men blow smoke. A lot of men claim, like I said, me Tarzan, you Jane, and declare that they're the man. But the fact is, a woman that kneels and kisses the whip and says, I submit to you, then um, you understand a woman. You've gotten to her heart. And that is the key. All right, let's move on. 3 quotes that are fun. I have wondered sometimes if a man to be a man must not master a woman, if a woman to be a woman must not know herself mastered. When a woman is mastered, she truly feels her feminine nature. Um, Go on and ask, how does a slave know herself to be mastered? And it's this. And again, a quote from the book. What woman could respect a man who's not strong enough to put her under the whip? That is an important. The other slave I mentioned that said very few, then went on to make a comment, and that's what these next 3 deal with. And I know for a fact the slave on my left in this video said the same thing to me the other day about her, and I'm fairly sure the girl to my right does the same thing. She says that when I meet a master, I always put him through a test to find out who's stronger. Now, all my girls run businesses of one sort or another, or have in real life, and all of them are strong women. They all run businesses. They're not just anybody. They're not housewives. These are people who organize, who make their money off of running things. Um, but she said, so the woman that told me this the same way. In fact, she has employees. She said, I always put them into a test to see who wins, whether I'm stronger than they are. She said, by the way, you passed. I said, well, that's good to know. We're going on a year together. But the point of it is that is the key. They're going to test to see whether you're strong enough or stronger than they are. Because these are strong women. These are not weaklings. Okay? Quote 2, it's one thing to be subject to the whip and know the subjection is quite real, that the master can and will whip you. And will, if you're not pleasing, something has to be actually whipped. Okay, now that is, oh, and the last quote, I generally feel the pain, at least generally, should not be inflicted on a slave unless it's meaningful. I'm going to address that quote later. This is a little bit earlier, but we are going to address that one. But it's one thing to be subject to the whip and know that the subject is quite real, and the master can, will whip you if you're not pleasing. Something has to be actually whipped. There's the knowledge, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. Masters very rarely whip their slaves. I very rarely discipline mine. But as a quote I'm going to read later says, it's not because I'm a bad master, it's because they don't need it. These girls are superb in the way they act and the way they act in front of others and the way they act in front of me. They really don't need it. Not very much. But the point is, the knowledge that they can be or will be when needed is what matters. I'll bring up a form of punishment later that I used on a couple of my girls that surprised the hell out of them. But the point of it is, it's the knowledge that when needed, it will be done. It's not theoretical. And it's not that I have to, but it's just them knowing that it'll come if they get out of hand. That's what matters. And a lot of men don't get that. They threaten and they threaten. Children know this. Little children know this inherently. I never have whipped my son in real life. I never had to. When he was very, very young, I used to tell him no. Now, what was odd was his mother, and this is real life, His mother used to always tell him no and threaten him, but never, ever, ever did anything about it. When he got older, about 8, 9, and 10, he had temper tantrums with her. We got divorced, and I'm not going into that, but he used to have temper tantrums with her. He never, ever did that with me. And the difference was he knew with me that if I told him no, I was going to do exactly what I said. And he never, ever went beyond that boundary. I could put him in a doorway, look at him and say, stay there, and he'd stay. And when he got older, even into his teen years, he hated disobeying me. Whereas with his mom, I'm talking temper tantrums from hell. And that is the key with a slave, a woman with a slave's heart. She has to know that if you set a limit, you'll enforce it. Whereas even little children can sense when a parent is bluffing and is only blowing smoke, and when a parent will back it up. And you see it all the time with children who push that limit and nothing happens. And they continue to threaten, if you keep going. And meanwhile, the kid's going on a tantrum, and I've seen it too many times. All right, the book shows the responsibility to be a master rests on the man, not the woman. It's totally on you guys, or mistresses for that matter. One, it's only in the mastery of male achieves full masterhood, and it's only at his feet a female finds the fulfillment of womanhood in surrender, in submission, in service, in love. Mariners of Gore. Two, I knew from my own experience that nothing fulfills manliness like the mastery. He would be a man, must be a master who surrender. He who surrenders mastery surrenders his manhood. Okay, players of Gore. Quote, without the mastery, there can be no complete male fulfillment. Interesting, without complete male fulfillment, there can be no complete female fulfillment. Okay? Okay. Now, the key there, and that runs a couple of areas. If you can't, and any woman's going to tell you this, it's a popular saying, if a man can't master himself, he can't master a woman. It's just a fact of life. Men who cannot master themselves cannot master. The mastery comes from inside of you. The ability to do what you say you're going to do. The ability to go crazy at times. Can you control your emotions? Or do you just go off on your woman and call her names in real life, hit her or whatever else? You know, do you have enough self-control to know that something's wrong without doing weird stuff to your slave? Real life or second life. You make the mistake of demeaning her all the time and not using self-control because you can't help yourself. Or you can. You make a choice when you do it. Self-control. Man, you are a master because you mastered yourself first. You're a master because you prove that you keep your word, and when you say, I'm going to do something, it will happen. A woman has to sense that out of you. Do you do what you say you're going to do? I'm going to make $1 million, and then you sleep till 10 a.m. in the morning and get up and eat like a slob and all this other stuff. There ain't no way in hell you're going to make $1 million. You can't master it yourself. So your women have to sense that you're in control of yourself before they're going to let you have control of them. And this is real life too. I don't know how many women have given up men because the men just did not have control of themselves. Strong women. Weak women don't give a shit. They just want a man. We're talking about women worth having. Okay, next one. By the way, there aren't very many. It's a short video, but hopefully practical for you. Fourth one, what forms can a whipping take? Well, you could use a literal whip. Here's the key to that, and I'll be honest with you. Unless the slave is a real life slave, it won't matter. Virtual is, one guy told me, I can do that all day long. Girl sits up behind her screen and laughs her ass off. Now, if she is a real life slave, she felt the whip. She knows what it's like. Most of my girls have been under the whip in real life. So when they're in Second Life, they feel it. Especially if you do what I have. There is a video I have, if you go look at it, on using the whip. And it shows you how to use the whip in Second Life. And if you do use it and you have one that's realistic and does the sound and you do all the right stuff, the girl's going to feel it. Girl that's empathic. Other than that, you've got a problem. Like one slaver told me, you've got some woman sitting behind a screen laughing her ass going, yeah, whip me, go ahead, whip me again. And it doesn't matter. So you've got to find other ways of dealing with it. That slaver used to give an essay, a 1,000-word essay, and have them write it out. What have I done wrongly? What rule have I broken? If it were to happen again, what would I change? How will I act next time? And has them submit it to him on cards. I know the slave you have in the video to your left hates that. Nothing like having a girl write a 1,000-word essay. But he said, trust me, he goes, that's a lot more effective than a whip. 2, take away something they enjoy. Girl, now I have slaves, they go barefoot. But if you happen to have a slave that you do allow to wear shoes, take away the shoes. Take away the favorite dress. Anything you can come across. 2, isolation. Women that want to please hate being put away for a while, whether it be 30 minutes, an hour, a day. Come talk to me in a day. A woman that's there to please hates that. So isolation. Tell them you displeased me. Women that want to please hate to hear those words. If they're a slave in real life, they hate to hear those words. Now, role play slaves, not so much. They don't give a shit. They go into your IMs and tell you all kinds of crap. That's why I'd have them write a 1,000-page essay when you have one of those. If you've got a girl that basically is a role play slave, go with the essay. ICE. This is one of my favorites. 2 of the slaves I used to have, when I got a hold of them, they were mouthy and tended to constantly do shit. I've got this one rack as cool as anything. And I pull this rack out and I set it up. And then what happens is when it captures them, if I go the right setting, it puts a block of ice on their back. And it has me sit underneath that ice with the blanket over my head, and I drink coffee. And I did this for 30 minutes. Oh, and I put a ball gag in her. Can't remember if I did the blindfold. I know I ball gagged her to where she couldn't talk, and the talk came out muffled. She hated that. That girl, I tell you what, that girl never talked back again. In fact, she's still one of my slaves. But that shut her down when she realized I was going to throw her butt back on that thing. I mean, it was great. 2 of them I did that too. Shut both of them up. Ball gagged them, threw them up on a deal, chained them, put a block of ice on their back, and I sat and drank coffee for an hour. Both of them stayed with me. Both of them never did that again. So a punishment can come a lot of different ways, depending on the person. You have to know your girls, and that is another whole nother subject. Rules for punishment. Never, ever, ever, ever punish while angry. You're going to say stuff you don't want to say. You can tell the sub to take a time out, go stand in the corner, go sit in a chair, go to your room, go to your dungeon cell, anything, but calm down and think. You don't want to do stupid shit like throwing off your friends list, and stuff like that. Better off to say, look, go sit over there, go to the dungeon. I need to think. I use that in real life and Second Life. I do better after I've had a time to think things out. Calm down rather than sitting there going ballistic on the whole thing. Next one, rule number 2, make sure the punishment matches the level of the severity. Make sure the level of the offense and the severity. A slight hesitation to obey would not merit release, for example. You don't throw a slave off your chain merely because she hesitated to obey. They don't match. If the offense is slight, a slight show of displeasure, such as raising an eyebrow, might be all that's needed, especially with a true light slave. Our purpose is to conduct correct inappropriate behavior and reduce the chance of being repeated. It's not to be cruel and abusive. That bullshit's got to stop, real life or Second Life. It's to correct, to train, not to be abusive. For a light offense, a gentle talk may be all that's required to correct the behavior. For more serious offense, I give her some form of timeout. That can merely be sitting in a cell on a proper for 10 to 20 minutes, not being permitted to talk to me, not being near me, or a full day if necessary. Depends on the severity. Think it out, though. Don't do something stupid. 3, punishment should be not be pleasant. It makes no sense to plan a spank a sub who's misbehaving on purpose of hopes of receiving a spanking. You know, some girls love the hell out of spankings. For such a sub, I'd give a writing assignment, an essay, and a topic related to offense. Why I tested my mistress or master. But giving them a spanking. However, like I said, real life slaves, it works. Okay, number 4, aftercare. And I just asked my slaves before I started this today, is aftercare needed? And they said yes. Aftercare must follow punishment. Sub needs to most likely be in a deep emotional distress having displeased you. You may even fear losing you, especially if it's something really, really important. You know, she or they may be having thoughts and feelings about the offense and the punishment needs to deal with it. I like to cuddle with my sub before the fire, following punishment, reassuring that he hasn't lost my love, and talk about the feelings and the aftercare. The point of it is they need to know you take them back. You just don't do shit, spank them, and then don't bring it up. Finally, forgiveness, and this is for you, you yourself personally. Forgiveness must follow punishment. You must sincerely forgive and be willing to put the incident behind you. Don't bring it up every freaking time and remind them. You remember back when you must accept that you've learned and been corrected until they prove otherwise. Then and only then is the issue I'm sorry. Then and only then I'm going to have to cut this. Oh, is the issue reopened? If you cannot forgive the offense, then perhaps you should consider release. It is cruel to you and the sub to continue if you harbor resentment. There was a girl who did something I considered unforgivable. She lied to me and went to another master, and I let her go. It just pissed me off. I mean, number one, she was with him. 2, she lied about it. And then when busted, she came up with a lame excuse. And for that, there was no forgiveness, there was no punishment. In fact, that was the second time she'd done that. I'd already forgiven her, taken back, and then she turned around with another guy and did the same thing again. Basically showed up in events she wasn't supposed to be at, purposely told me she was going to. Anyway, I'm not going into all the details. The point of it is, I let her go and haven't talked to her since. In fact, I hadn't even seen her second life since. She may have dropped off the grid. But that to me was the second time back. I told her I forgave her. Bygones be bygones, and I caught her lying to me again. And she's gone. So there is a point at which you're better off just letting somebody go rather than doing all that. But like I said, that was a second offense, and the severity of it was incredible. You're going to cheat on me, at least let me know what the hell's going on. That girl, unfortunately, didn't do that. All right. I mentioned earlier, and here's the quote for that earlier. The whip on Gore, incidentally, is not so much in evidence. I seldom used it. That it will be used impromptu if occasion arises is paradoxically perhaps why it's seldom to be used. Most girls avoid feeling it, at least generally, by striving to be excellent slaves. To be sure, every female slave will feel it upon her on occasion, and it's common that they make certain that these occasions are quite infrequent. To be sure, some women do not fully understand they are owned until they're whipped. Once in a while, they need to feel that submission on purpose. Okay, once in a while, they do that on purpose just so they feel their submission. They want to know to you, and that's what I'm trying to say. And I mentioned that earlier. One of my slaves mentioned every once in a while that she does it on purpose again. Ellen, quote, Ellen was almost never beaten except for occasional stroke of the switch. The reason for this was of course, that her master was not because her master was weak, but because she had become an excellent slave, and there's very little reason to beat her. Look, guys, I've seen a lot of slaves that suck as slaves, and their masters don't deal with them. So if that's the occasion, yeah, you're weak. But if you've got a really good slave and you constantly beat her, that's inexcusable. It's quite common on Gore. This is common on Gore. Gratuitous cruelty is far from common on earth, I fear. More common on earth than I fear that on Gore. The value of the whip, you see, is not so much as being used, as in the slave's knowledge it can be used under certain circumstances and will be used. Prizes of Gore, page 699. Okay, that's it. And think about what I've said. If you don't agree, you don't agree, but I think there's a lot of good information there. Be well.
That's all, folks.